Good morning, grade 7s. Welcome to your daily lesson of mathematics brought to you by WorksheetCloud. I hope you guys are all well this morning and looking forward to today's lesson. Just a reminder of the email address on your screen, grade7@worksheetcloud.com. Please feel free to use it to send me any feedback or queries that you might have. An additional reminder of the previous lessons and also the online activities and memos that you can access through WorksheetCloud.com. Please make the most of them and make sure you consolidate any of the work that we are teaching you. Today we are looking at data handling and more specifically looking at averages. And then on either side of that main theme, we've got our warm-up, our mental maths questions, which cover previously taught principles, so just some revision and consolidation there, and then your brain bender and challenges to finish off the lesson at the end. So let's get into our warm-up activity for today. You should by now know that you need to tell me the value of each symbol and then the value of the question mark at the end. Take your time, there's no need to rush. Check your work and then press play to see how you guys get on. Okay, so this warm-up puzzle involves fractions. I hope you guys recognize that. And I'm going to start on the second line. And I know that 1 is equal to 1 divided by 1. So that's where I started, and those are the numbers I used. I then went down to the fourth line, and I recognized that 2 multiplied by half is equal to 1. So my monkey is going to be equal to a half. Then 6 multiplied by half is going to give me 3 for the giraffe. Okay. And then at the top I'll have a half plus 3. That's 3.5. So therefore that bunny must be another half. So a half plus 3 plus a half is going to give me 4. And then right at the bottom, I've got 3 minus a half, and that's going to give me an answer of 2. Okay, I hope you guys managed to work through that puzzle, and I hope you guys are ready to move on to your mental arithmetic questions for today. So here are your mental arithmetic questions for today. Work through them slowly. Remember to write down all your calculations in a clear and logical manner. Make sure you can check your work where necessary. Take your time. There's no prize for first place. We're looking for quality work. And yeah, let's see how you guys get on. Right, question number 1, 189,007. And I'm adding 387,281. Remember, the decimals need to line up. Okay, very, very important. Possibly one of the most important parts of adding decimals. Your next important part is just to make sure that all the numbers are in the correct columns, that you're adding correctly, that you carry where necessary, and your final answer there should be 576,228. Your second question is the subtraction of decimals, and again, really important to have the correct numbers in the correct columns. Make sure that your decimals line up with each other, and then it's just a case of subtracting normally. You need to borrow where necessary. Make sure you do so neatly and clearly. Quite often I find boys make careless mistakes because they don't write things down logically. They can't read their own handwriting, and that obviously causes problems further down the line. Remember, we can check the subtraction sum by doing the opposites and adding. So 4 plus 4 is equal to 8, yes. 5 and 8 is equal to 13, yes. 1 and 6 equals 7, and 3 and 2 equals 5. So then we can be confident that we've done the correct calculation and that our work is indeed right. Okay, the next question is multiplication, and it's long multiplication. Okay, so by now you know that you can do multiplication in a variety of ways. So I'm going to show you a couple of methods today. The first one, I'm just going to do the normal standard column method. And for that, remember, we just multiply throughout. That's going to be 3. So 215 multiplied by 2 is 430. And we need that magical placeholder, which is the most important part of this method. And then 3 times 5 is 15. We need to carry 1. 3 times 1 is 3, plus 1 is 4. And then 3 times 2 is 6. And then we need to add those two together, and you should get an answer of 6,880. Another method we can use is we can split 215 up into 200, 10, and 5. And we can split 32 up into 30 and 2. Okay, and then we can multiply these numbers together, and we can see where we get to. So we know that 30 times 200, so 3 times 200 is 600, and then we need to add that additional 0. 30 times 10, 3 times 10 is 30, so we know 30 times 10 is 300, and 30 times 5 we know is 150. Then 2 times 200 is 400, 2 times 20 is 20, and 2 times 5 is 10. Okay, then we need to just do a little bit of an addition calculation. So if we add up these numbers, this is 6,400. This is going to be 320. And this column is going to be 160. And then if we add all of those up, we should hopefully get the same answer of 6,880. You can do doubling and halving. Okay, and doubling and halving will look something like this. Just give me a second to clean the board. So if we have doubling and halving, 215 multiplied by 32, I've got to double the odd number, and I've got to halve the even number. I can double the odd number again, or sorry, not the odd number, the 430, and I can halve 16. Okay. If I wanted to, I could double it again. That's going to give me 1,720 multiplied by 4. I'm lucky enough that I can do it again. So that's going to be 3,440 multiplied by 2. And you can see that that answer will indeed give us 6,880. So that's probably the easiest method, to be fair, because all we're doing there is we're doubling and halving. And at the end, we just multiply by 2. So you've got 3 options there to choose from. Make sure that you understand whichever option you use. And like I said before, make sure you write everything down. When you write down your thoughts on paper, it just makes everything a lot easier to understand. Okay? Your fourth question is a long division question. 5,145 divided by 35. And by now, I'm sure you know that I like to do long division via multiplication. So I'll first multiply by 100, and that gives me 35 times 100 is 3,500. Okay, I've still got a way to go. So if I multiply 35 by 50, that's going to give me 1,750. Now if I add those up, I'm going to get 5,250. So I now know that 35 multiplied by 150 equals 5,250. But that's too much. Okay, so how much is too much? Well, we can simply do a subtraction sum to figure that out. Okay, and if you figure that out, you'll notice that that is 105. And we know that 35 multiplied by 3 equals 105. So therefore, I need to take off 3 groups of 35 from 150. Okay, and that will give me an answer of 147. Okay, so if I just clear some space, we'll know that 150 minus 3 equals 147. So 147 times 35 is equal to 5,145. Okay, so your answer is 147. 5 is the addition of fractions. So you've got a mixed number, or two mixed numbers, and the first thing you can notice is they've got different denominators. So I am going to first change them to improper fractions, and I'm going to add them like this. Okay, I can see my lowest common denominator of 4 and 5 is going to be 20. 4 goes into 25 times, so 5 times 9 is 45. 5 goes into 24 times, so 4 times 8 is 32. And if we add those together, we get 77 over 20. And if you needed to convert that to a mixed number, 20 goes into 77 3 times, with the remainder of 17 over 20. So you can also, if you so wish, is leave them as mixed fractions, and you can go 2 plus 1 is 3, and then simply add the quarter and the 3/5, and you'll get the same answer of 17 over 20, and then you must just remember to include the 3 whole numbers in your answer. So you've got 2 options to work with there. Your next question, 0,1 times 100, and I'm pretty confident that by now you guys know that if I multiply by 10, 100, or 1,000, my number gets bigger by however many multiples of 10 there are. Okay, so we got 2, so 10 times 10 is 100, so therefore 0,1 becomes 10. Okay. Question 7 is the division of fractions. And I'm sure by now we know that we must write both numbers as fractions just to make it visually easier for us to understand. The division sign changes to multiply, and we invert the second fraction that's after the division sign to its reciprocal, and then we just multiply normally. 1 times 1 is 1, and 2 times 5 is 10. So your answer there is 1/10. Question 8 is the multiplication of fractions, and here we have 2 1/3 multiplied by 4. So I'll convert this to improper, and I'll make 4 over 1. So we have those 2 fractions we've spoken about, and again we can't cross cancel or cancel out diagonally. So 7 times 4 is 28, and 3 times 1 is 3. And if you're required to turn that into a mixed number, how many times is 3 going to 28? And that's 9 times. 3 times 9 is 27, and that leaves you with 1 over 3. Okay? And your last question from your mental maths today is a percentage question, and you're going to have to work out 40% of 90. Okay, and I've always said to you find 10%, and to find 10% we just divide by 10, and that's going to give you 9. And then to find 40% I simply multiply the 9 by 4, and that's going to give me an answer of 36. So guys, well done if you managed to work through those 9 questions and you continue to get them correct. The more we do them, the more comfortable we become with them. And yeah, it ultimately saves us a lot of time when we get into the higher grades and answer assessments and questions. But yeah, let me know if you have any questions regarding any of these calculations. So the main theme for today is to look at measures of central tendency. And measures of central tendency are averages, and the average we're going to look at today is the median. So the median is the score in the middle of a data set that has been arranged in ascending order. So that second part of that sentence about being arranged in ascending order is really, really critical, because quite often, and you'll see in the examples that we're going to do, the data set or the numbers given to you are in no particular order. Now, there are 2 methods for finding the median. So we're going to have a look at the method on the left-hand side first, and that is the median for an odd number of scores. So you can see the numbers 12, 9, 4, 6, 7, 3, and 2. The first thing I need to do is arrange those numbers in ascending order, smallest to biggest, and that would be 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 9, and 12. And then I just cancel out numbers on the outside. So first I cancel the 2 and the 12, then the 3 and the 9, and then the 4 and the 7. And you can see it leaves me with the middle number of 6, and 6 is going to be your median. So to work out the median of an odd set of numbers is pretty straightforward. Put them in ascending order, find the middle value, and that is your median. Your median for an even number of scores is slightly different. Again, first put it in ascending order, which we've done. And then you'll notice you can cancel out the 0 and the 9, the 1 and the 9, the 3 and the 8, etc. And you're going to be left with 2 middle numbers. Okay, so your middle numbers there are 4 and 6. We then need to find the mean or the average of 4 and 6. And we should know that to work out the mean, we add the 2 numbers together. So 4 plus 6 is equal to 10. And then we divide by 2 because there are 2 entries that we're working with. And the 2 entries are 4 and 6. So 10 divided by 2 is going to be 5. So the median of that even number of scores is 5. Okay? This is now your turn to go and practice working out the median. So there are 4 examples there for you to do. Remember to write the set in ascending order first. Give it a shot and let's see how you guys get on. For question number 1, the first thing we said we were going to do is write the numbers in ascending order. So that's going to be 0, 2, 4, 6, and 8. So a nice easy one, all even numbers to start off with. We can cancel out and we are left with a median of 4. Okay, so an odd set of numbers, pretty straightforward to work out that median. In question number 2, we first write them in ascending order. So it'd be 4, 6, 9, and 10. Okay, and then you can see your 2 middle numbers are 6 and 9. So 6 plus 9 equals 15. I must then divide 15 by 2, and that's going to give me a median score of 7.5. Okay, so remember an even number of scores, take the 2 middle results, or 2 middle scores, and get the average of those. Now question 3 I've put in on purpose because quite often you have to deal with a long list of numbers. And the most important thing here is to write every single number down, even if it's been repeated. Okay, so the first number we need to start off with is 0. Okay, then we've got the number 1, and it's quite often handy to cancel out the numbers so you don't miss any out. There's one number 2, there's another number 2. Okay, there's a 3. There's 5, 6, second 6, 7, another number 7. So make sure you write down both number 7s. There's a number 8 and another number 8. So make sure you write down both of them. There are 2 9s and 12 and 13. So it's quite handy to cross off numbers on your list so that you don't leave any out. And then we can go through our same process of cancelling out. And we can find our middle entries or middle entry, depending on whether it's an even or odd set of numbers. And you can see I'm left with 6 and 7. Okay, so 6 plus 7 is 13. And then I need to find the average of those, divide by 2, and that's going to give me 6.5. You need to find a missing entry. Okay, so we need to find the unknown score of x, and that told us that the median of the scores for individual players in a basketball game is 6, and there's an even number of entries, so we can simply cross them off to find out which is our middle values. Okay, and we know that the average of these two numbers needs to be 6, as they've told us that in the question. So what do I add to 4 and then divide it by 2 to get 6? And you're quite correct if you had said you need to add 8, because 4 plus 8 is equal to 12, and then 12 divided by 2 is equal to 6. Okay, so your missing entry is going to be the number 6. Okay, the next section we're going to move on to is outliers and measures of central tendency. So, I mean, there's quite a bit of writing on the page, but don't be too concerned about that. So outliers are scores which either seem extremely low or extremely high when compared to other scores. So you can see there I've got a list of numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 4, 4, 5, and 6, and then all of a sudden there's the number 100. And below that I've got 12, 15, 18, 19, and then it makes a massive jump to 97. So the number 100 in the top set and the 97 in the bottom set, those are outliers. So they are entries that are miles away from the other numbers. And on the right hand side, you can see negative 20 is quite far away from any of the other decimal numbers. And then below that, the numbers 1 and 2 are quite far away from the numbers in their 30s and 40s. So those are called outliers, and you quite often get them when you're dealing with data. So when we're dealing with outliers, then what is the best measure of central tendency to use? So we know we've got the mode, the mean, and the median. And remember, mode is the score that occurs the most often, and your mean is your average. So your number of entries added up divided by however many entries there are. And we've just gone through the median, which is your middle value. So I thought it would be a good idea just to explain which to use and when to use which measure of central tendency. So your mean is better when the data has no outliers. So my example I've given you there is I've given you a list of numbers which add up to 32. There are 8 of them. So 32 divided by 8 is 4. So your mean is 4. But if your set had an outlier, and I've included the number 100, that would make your mean 14,6. So you can see that outlier changes the average or the mean quite substantially. Okay, so it's better to use the mean when there's no outlier. Okay, purely because when there is an outlier, your mean changes like quite a lot, as you can see in the example. Your median is better to use when the data does have an outlier. So I've given you the same list of numbers as the original example, 2, 2, 4, 4, 5, 5, and 6. The median there is going to be 4, okay? But if the set had an outlier, like 100 again, then the median would remain 4, okay? So that means the outlier does not affect the median representing a typical score. Okay, so just remember that when you do have an outlier, it's better to use the median as a measure of central tendency. Your mode is better for when you want to know what is the most common score or category. Okay, so if a shop sells a particular shirt and the sizes of the shirt are like they are on your screen, 6, 4 8s, 10, 12, 14, and 16. What size should the shop order more of? So if you have a look at the mode's going to be 8 because 8 occurs the most often. But if you had a look at the median is going to be an answer of 9. Okay, and there are no shirt sizes being sold that are 9. So clearly your best option there is to use the mode. Okay, so I hope that makes a bit more sense for you guys when to use which measure of central tendency. And let's go on to where I want you guys to have a turn. Here's an example of time taken to travel from Asheville to Blanderton over 11 consecutive days. So you got 23 minutes, 25 minutes, all the way to 20 minutes. And then I'd like you to answer those 6 questions that follow. And let's see how you guys get on with the Google Jamboard once you've done it. Okay, so you can see I've already written a few things down with these 6 questions. So number one, which score is the outlier? And I'm sure you can all identify that 125 is quite far away from all of the other entries. So your outlier would be 125. The mean score, if you added up all those numbers, you'd get 385. And there are 11 of them. So 385 divided by 11 would be 35. Your median score. So your median score, and you can see I've already listed the numbers in ascending order, which was the first thing that we should have done. And then I've crossed off the numbers until I got to the middle number of 27. So your median score there is going to be 27. Then they ask us then in question 4, they ask us which, let me just put 27 in there. Question 4, which is the best representative of the center of these scores, the mean or the median? And remember we said that because there was an outlier, the best measure of central tendency to use when there's an outlier is indeed your median. Okay. In question 5, they've asked us to calculate the mean core again, this time ignoring the outlier. So if you take 125 out, you'll get 260, and then 260 will be divided by 10 entries, and that will give you an answer of 26. And then the last question, is the mean found in part 5 a better representative of the center of the data? And the answer there is yes. Okay, and purely because now that we've removed that outlier, it gives us a better representative of the other 10 scores. Okay, so yes would be your answer to question number 6. Okay guys, that brings us to your final challenge for today, which is the game of 24, and I'm pretty sure you guys know and understand how this works. For those of you who don't, you need to use, for example, on the first card, there's the numbers 3, 3, 9, and 5. You need to use those 4 numbers with add, subtract, multiply, and divide to get the answer of 24. You can use all the operations. You can use 1, you can use 2, you can use 3. It's up to you. And the second part of the challenge is to see how many different ways you can come up with the answer of 24. Grade 7s, thanks very much for joining me today. I hope you guys learned something or consolidated some information that you've learned in the past. Remember to send me any queries or feedback on the email address grade7@worksheetcloud.com. Keep your eyes out for the online activities and memos. And apart from that, keep safe, keep well, and we'll see you next time. Cheers.